नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय. Text 1. Shri Shuka Uvacha. Evam Bruvadam Maitreyam Dvaipayana Buddha Prinayanniva Bharatya Viduraha Pratyabhashata.
Sorry, can we scroll the screen a bit up, Mataji? Thank you. Hare Krishna to everyone. Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, O king, while Maitreya, the great sage, was thus speaking, Vidura, the learned son of Dwaipayana Vyasa, expressed a request in a pleasing manner by asking this question.
Text 2. Vidura Uvacha. Brahman Katham Bhagavataschin Matrasya Vikarinaha Leelaya Chapi Yucheran Nirgunasya Gunaha Kriyaha.
Sorry, I can't read the screen. Thank you. Sri Vidura said, O great Brahmana, since the Supreme Personality of Godhead is a complete spiritual whole and is unchangeable, how is he connected with the material modes of nature and their activities? If this is his pastime, how do the activities of unchangeable take place and exhibit qualities without the modes of nature?
Text 3. क्रीडायामुद्यमोर्भस्य कामश्चिक्रीडिशान्यतः स्वतस्तृप्तस्य च कथं निवृत्तस्य सदान्यतः.
Boys are enthusiastic to play with other boys or with various diversions because they are encouraged by desire. But there is no possibility of such desire for the Lord because he is self-satisfied and detached from everything at all times.
Text 4. अस्त्राक्षित् भगवान् विश्वं गूढमय्यात्ममायया तया संस्थापयत्येतद् भूयः प्रत्यपिधास्यति.
By his sheltered potency of the free modes of material nature, the Lord has caused the creation of this universe. By her, he maintains the creation and conversely dissolves it again and again.
Text 5. देशतः कालतो योऽसा स्वस्थातः स्वतोऽन्यतः अविलुप्तावबोधात्मा स युज्येता जया कथम्.
The pure soul is pure consciousness and is never out of consciousness, either due to circumstances, time, situations, dreams, or other causes. How then does he become engaged in science?
Text 6. भगवानेक एवैष सर्वक्षेत्रेष्वस्थितः अमुष्य दुर्भगत्वं वा क्लेशो वा कर्मभिः कुतः.
The Lord as a super soul is situated in every living being's heart. Why then do the living entities' activities result in misfortune and misery?
Text 7. एतस्मिन् मे मनो विद्वन् खिद्यते ज्ञानसङ्कटे तन्नः पराणुदविभो कश्मलं मानसं महत्.
O great and learned one, my mind is greatly illusioned by the distress of the nescience, and I therefore request you to clear it up.
Text 8. श्रीशुक उवाच स इत्थं चोदितः क्षत्रा तत्त्वजिज्ञासुना मुनिः प्रत्याह भगवच्चितः स्मयन्निव गतस्मयः.
Sri Sukadev Goswami said, O King Maitreya, being thus agitated by the inquisitive Vidura, at first seemed astonished, but then he replied to him without hesitation, since he was fully God conscious.
Text 9. Maitreya uvacha सेयं भगवतो माया यन्न येन विरुध्यते ईश्वरस्य विमुक्तस्य कार्पण्यमुत बन्धनम्.
Sri Maitreya said, certain conditioned souls put forward the theory that the Supreme Brahman, or the personality of Godhead, is overcome by illusion or Maya, and at the same time they maintain that he is unconditioned. This is against all logic.
Text 10. यदर्थेन विनामुष्य पुंस आत्मविपर्ययः प्रतीयत उपद्रष्टुः स्वशिरच्छेदनादिकः.
The living entity is in distress regarding his self-identity. He has no factual background, like a man who dreams that he sees his head cut off.
Text 11. यथा जले चन्द्रमसः कम्पादिस्तकृतो गुणः दृश्यते सन्नपि द्रष्टुरात्मनो नात्मनो गुणः.
As the moon reflected on water appears to the seer to tremble due to being associated with the quality of the water, so the self associated with matter appears to be qualified as matter.
Text 12. सवै निवृत्तिधर्मेण वासुदेवानुकम्पया भगवद्भक्तियोगेन तिरोधत्ते शनैरिह.
But that misconception of self identity can be diminished gradually by the mercy of the personality of Godhead, Vasudeva, through the process of devotional service to the Lord in a mode of detachment.
Text 13. यदेन्द्रियोपरामोथ द्रष्टात्मनि परे हरौ विलीयन्ते तदा क्लेशाः संसुप्तस्यैव कृत्स्नशः.
When the senses are satisfied in the seer super soul, the personality of Godhead, and merge in him, all miseries are completely vanquished, and after a sound sleep.
Text 14. अशेषसङ्क्लेशशमं विधत्ते गुणानुवादश्रवणं मुरारेः किं वा पुनस्तच्चनारविन्दं परागसेवारतिरात्मलब्धा.
Simply by chanting and hearing of the transcendental name, form, etc. of the personality of Godhead, Sri, Sri Krishna, one can achieve the cessation of unlimited miserable conditions. Therefore, what to speak of those who have attained attraction for serving the flavor of the dust of the Lord's lotus feet?
Text 15. विदुर उवाच सञ्छिन्नः संशयो मह्यं तव सुक्तासि ना विभो उभयत्रापि भगवन् मनो मे सम्प्रधावति.
Vidura said, O powerful sage, my lord, all my doubts about the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the living entities have now been removed by your convincing words. My mind is now perfectly entering into them.
Text 16. साध्वे तद्व्याहतं विद्वन् नात्ममायानयनं हरेः आभात्य पार्थं निर्मूलं विश्वमूलं न यद्धि.
O learned sage, your explanations are very good, as they should be. Disturbances to the conditioned soul have no other basis than the movement of the external energy of the Lord.
Text 17. Yascha मूढतमो लोके यश्च बुद्धेः परं गतः तावुभौ सुखमेधेते क्लिश्यन्त्यन्तो रितो जनः.
Both the lowest of fools and he who is transcendental to all intelligence enjoy happiness, whereas persons between them suffer the material pangs.
Text 18. अर्थाभावं विनिश्चित्य प्रतितस्यापि नात्मनः तां चापि युष्मच्चरणं सेवयाहं पराणुदे.
But, my dear sir, I am obliged to you because now I can understand that this material manifestation is without substance, although it appears real. I am confident that by serving your feet, it will be possible for me to give up the false idea.
Text 19. यत्सेवया भागवतः कुटस्थस्य मधुद्विषः रतिरासो भवेत्तीव्रः पादयोर्व्यसनार्दनः.
By serving the feet of the spiritual master, one is enabled to develop transcendental ecstasy in the service of the personality of Godhead, who is unchangeable, enemy of the Madhu demon, and whose service vanquishes one's material distresses.
Text 20. दुरापाह्यल्पतपसः सेवा वैकुण्ठवर्त्मसु यत्रोपगीयते नित्यं देवदेवो जनार्दनः.
Persons whose austerity is meager can hardly obtain the service of the pure devotees who are progressing on the path back to the kingdom of Godhead, the Vaikunthas. Pure devotees engage 100% in glorifying the Supreme Lord, who is the Lord of the demigods and the controller of all living entities.
Text 21. सृष्टाग्रे महदादीनि सविकाराण्यनुक्रमात् तेभ्यो विराजमुदधृत्य तमनुप्राविशद्विभुः.
After creating the total material energy, the Mahatattva, and thereby manifesting the gigantic universal form with senses and sense organs, the Supreme Lord entered within it.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, and apologies if I've made any mistakes. Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna, same here. Please forgive if I made any mistake. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Shubhada Mataji and Huma Mataji. Your recitation of Sanskrit and the English was just right. Thank you. Welcome, dear devotees, to today's chat session. We continue today with our reading and discussion from the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. We continue to discuss chapters number 7, entitled Further Inquiries from Vidura. And today we shall be discussing text number 12 to 14. We'll start off as we normally do by reciting the Mangala Charanam prayers. Please feel free to join in, be unmuted mics. Om Gyana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unvalitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sahagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutan Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastete Tapta Kanchana Gourange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Devi Pranamami Hari Priye
Vanchakalpatarubhyasya
Vanchakapalatarubhyasya
kripa
Kripa
sindhuvaya
Sindhuvyevacha Patitanam
patitanam
Pavanebhyo
pavanebhyo.
Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai
Jai
Shri
Shri Krishna.
Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivashadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschachadi Shatarine Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So let me share my screen. Okay, so discussing text number 12. Just quick context. Vidura is speaking to Maitreya Muni, two great personalities, meeting and discussing Krishna Katha. Vidura is extending further inquiries to Maitreya Muni. And in this particular section, he's inquiring about the plight of the conditioned souls. You know, this is the nature of a great personality or a great devotee. They are always meditating on how to help the conditioned souls, how to free them from this difficult situation of being separated from Krishna. So he inquires, how does the pure living entity become entangled in nescience? And then he asks, how does the living entity suffer in spite of having the Lord, the presence of the Lord within the heart? Very nice question. And he requests Maitreya Muni to clear it up. So in text 11 and 10 and 11, Maitreya Muni immediately gives an answer, no beating about the bush, just a straight, pure, transcendental answer. And he says that the living entities, they suffer due to misidentification. And he gives two examples about how we misidentify. He gives the example of in the dream, someone is seeing his head cut off. And then he suffers. His head is still intact. He's perfectly fine. But because he identifies with the dream, he suffers. And then he also gives the example in terms of misidentification, how the reflection of the moon can be seen in a body of water. And the body of water is trembling. And the moon also appears to be trembling. But actually, the moon is not trembling. The moon is perfectly intact in its position. It's just due to the misidentification of the reflection of the moon in the water we identify. So that theme continues in these verses we're discussing today, 12, 13, and 14. But the problem is not only spoken about. Here the solution is given. It's just so wonderful, so much to the point. This is the problem. We're suffering because misidentification, and this is the solution. And the solution starts by this verse and goes on to the next few verses. So the first solution is given in text number 12. Savai nivriti dharmena vasudeva nukampaya bhagavad bhakti yogena tirodhate Shanai, hiha, word for word synonyms. Saha, that, vai, also. Nivriti, detachment. Dharmena, by engagement. Vasudev, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Anukampaya, by the mercy of Bhagavat in relation with the personality of Godhead. Bhakti Yogena, by linking up. Tirodate diminishes. Shanei, gradually. Iha, in this existence. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. By that misconception of self-identity, but that misconception of self-identity can be diminished gradually by the mercy of the personality of Godhead, Vasudev, through the process of devotional service to the Lord in the mode of detachment. Purport. The quivering quality of material existence which comes from identification with matter or from thinking oneself under the material influence of philosophical speculation to be God can be eradicated by devotional service to the Lord, by the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudev. As discussed in the first canto, because the application of devotional service to Lord Vasudev invites pure knowledge, it quickly detaches one from the material conception of life, and thus revives one's normal condition of spiritual existence, even in this life, and frees one from the material winds which cause one to quiver. Only knowledge in devotional service can elevate one towards the path of liberation. The development of knowledge for the purpose of knowing everything without rendering devotional service is considered fruitless labor. And when one cannot get the desired result by such labor of love, Lord Vasudev is pleased by devotional service only, and thus his mercy is realized by association with pure devotees of the Lord. Pure devotees of the Lord are transcendental to all material desires, including the desire for the results of fruitive activities and philosophical speculation. If one wants to acquire the mercy of the Lord, he has to associate with pure devotees. Such association can, by degrees, release one from the quivering elements. So, the solution being given is that the misconception, which is the cause of all the difficulties and suffering, can be diminished. And the word is used gradually. And maybe when we read the next two verses, we'll understand better why the word gradually is used. By the mercy of the personality of Godhead Vasudev, through the process of devotional service to the Lord in the mode of detachment. Interestingly, we see that Prabhupada uses the word quivering 3 times in this verse. And Prabhupada gives the analogy. It's just like some element, either a leaf in a tree or some feather on the ground. They start moving, almost shaking in the wind, sometimes rapidly. They quiver due to the wind. So the living entity's position is like that. We are moving from one situation to the other, quivering because of the winds of material nature. But Prabhupada is saying that all of this can be eradicated. And Prabhupada gives a process here. He says we render devotional service. By rendering devotional service, Prabhupada uses very interesting word, invites pure knowledge. Prabhupada's words are so aptly chosen. Meaning that when we render devotional service, we attract the Lord. And the Lord from within the heart, He provides pure spiritual knowledge, while at the same time, as we know, Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha Jnana Ati Asuvairagya, that through the process of devotional service, both knowledge and detachment come. Because when we become enlightened with pure transcendental knowledge, transcendental knowledge is sometimes compared to fire. Sometimes it's compared to a lamp. Sometimes it's compared to a sword. And Prabhupada says transcendental knowledge simply means spiritual understanding. So that understanding is given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Now I want to share with you a verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam that I often read and refer to. And this verse is a verse spoken by Devahuti to a son Kapila Dev. And this is from the 3rd canto, 27th chapter, verse 17. Devahuti asks Kapila Dev an interesting question. He says, Sri Devahuti inquired, my dear Brahmana, does material nature ever give release to the spirit soul? Since one is attracted to the other eternally, how is separation possible? So devotee is saying, the spirit soul trapped in the material world, they seem to be attracted to each other eternally. The spirit soul attracted to Maya. You just cannot break it. Therefore, the living entities are sometimes called Nitya Bada. So she asked the question, how is a separation possible? And in the purport, Prabhupada gives us very nice insight into why it is so difficult to come out of false identification. And Prabhupada says here, although one may understand that spirit, soul, and matter are different, the actual separation is not possible either by philosophical speculation or by proper understanding. The spirit soul is the marginal potency of the Supreme Lord, and matter is the external potency of the Lord. The two eternal potencies have somehow or other been combined. And since it is so difficult to separate one from the other, how is it possible for the individual soul to become liberated? By practical experience, one can see that when the soul is separated from the body has no real existence. But when the body is separated from the soul, one cannot perceive the existence of the soul. As long as the soul and the body are combined, we can understand that it is life. So, Prabhupada is saying that the living entity is the marginal potency. The material nature is the external potency. These are two energies of the Lord. And when these energies, when they combine, it's very difficult. So here, Prabhupada, or in this verse that we're reading today, there is only one solution being proposed. And that proposal is, and Prabhupada says here, only by devotional service. And Prabhupada goes one step further to say that in particular, there's one aspect to devotional service, and that is the association of pure devotees of the Lord. Therefore, in the Nectar of Devotion, Srila Rupa Goswami lists 64 items of pure devotional service. And the first 4 are immediately connected with the association of the pure devotee or the spiritual master. So pure devotees, they are transcendental all material desires, including the desire for results for fruitive activities and philosophical speculation. And when we associate with pure devotees, Pure means without any tinge for liberation, fruit of results, and the gain from mystic yogic perfection. So if we want to acquire the mercy, we have to associate with pure devotees. Prabhupada says such association alone can, by degrees, release one from the quivering elements. So this is the constant message of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Again and again and again, we hear this. So after hearing it so many times, there's no doubt about the goal for our lives. Our goal should be to render pure devotional service to Krishna and to associate with the pure devotees. And through this process, we can attain success. So let's move on to the next verse, text number 13. Yadendriyo paramota drashtramani pare harau viliyante tada klesha samsuptasyeva krishnasaha. When the senses are satisfied in the seer supersoul, the personality of Godhead, and merge in him, all miseries are completely vanquished, as after a sound sleep. The quivering purport, the quivering of the living entity as described above, is due to the senses. Since the material existence is meant for sense gratification, the senses are the medium of material activities, and they cause the quivering of the steady soul. Therefore, the senses are to be detached from all material activities. According to the impersonalists, the senses are stopped from working by merging the soul in the supersoul Brahman. The devotees, however, do not stop the material senses from acting, but they engage their transcendental senses in the service of the transcendence, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In either case, the activities of the senses in the material field are to be stopped by cultivation of knowledge, and if possible, they can be engaged in the service of the Lord. The senses are transcendental in nature, but their activities become polluted when contaminated by matter. We have to treat the senses to cure them of the material disease, not stop them from acting as suggested by the impersonalists. In Bhagavad Gita, it is said that one ceases all material activities only when satisfied by contact with a better engagement. Consciousness is active by nature and cannot be stopped from working. Artificially stopping a mischievous child is not the real remedy. The child must be given some better engagement, so he will automatically stop causing mischief. In the same way, the mischievous activities of the senses can be stopped only by better engagement in relation with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When the eyes are engaged in seeing the beautiful form of the Lord, the tongue engaged in tasting prasad, or remnants of foodstuff offered to the Lord, the ears are engaged in hearing His glories, the hands engaged in cleaning the temple of the Lord, the legs engaged in visiting His temple. So when all the senses are engaged in transcendental variegatedness, then only can the transcendental senses become satiated and eternally free from material engagement. The Lord is the Supersoul residing in everyone's heart, and as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in the transcendental world, far beyond the material creation, is the sea of all our activities. Our activities must be so transcendental, saturated, that the Lord will be kind enough to look upon us favorably and engage us in His transcendental service. Then only can the senses be satisfied completely and be no longer troubled by material attraction. So, second very important instruction being given, and that is to engage the senses fully in the service of Krishna. And the example is given, someone is feeling very miserable, very tired. When we get tired, we get miserable, we get crabby, we get restless. But after we sleep, we feel those miseries all gone after a good sound sleep, because the body is now refreshed, the body is satisfied. So in the same way, it is very, very difficult to find satisfaction in this material world. There was a famous song by the Rolling Stones. I can't find no satisfaction. And I try, and I try, and I try. So the senses are impossible to satisfy. And because they're impossible to satisfy, we are always distressed. But it is said when we engage the senses in the service of the Lord, the senses become satisfied. In some purports in the Bhagavatam, Prabhupada compares the senses to snakes or serpents, and the fangs of that serpents are removed when they are engaged in the service of the Lord. And Prabhupada gives the formula very simply. He said, the Lord is situated in the heart. Our activities, when it's saturated with service, meaning activities to please Krishna, Krishna will look kindly and favorably onto us. And when he looks as kindly and favorably onto us, then only the senses will be completely satisfied and no longer troubled by material attraction. So everything is happening by Krishna's favor, Krishna's mercy. When Krishna is pleased, it's like someone coming and removing the fangs out of the snakes. They're completely powerless. And not only powerless, they become satisfied. Senses become satisfied. So this is what we are trying to practice. Sarvapadi vinimuktam tat parakvena nirmalam rishikena rishikesham sevanam bhakti uchyate. By engaging the senses in the service of the master of the senses, Rishikesh, then we become satisfied. Such a simple formula. We all know it. The challenge is to always practice it. And it's not always easy. But when we make the endeavor, Krishna sees that. And he gives us the power to fulfill that. Okay, almost time now, so I'll move on to the next verse, text 14. This is an interesting one. Ashesha sanklesha samam vidhate guna nuvada shravanam murare kimva punastat sharana ravinda paragha seva ratir atma labdha. Simply by chanting and hearing of the transcendental name, form, etc. of the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, one can achieve the cessation of unlimited material, miserable conditions. Therefore, what to speak of those who have attained attraction for serving the favor of the dust of the Lord's lotus feet? Devotees, you all with me? I'm just speaking continuously. Everyone alert? No one's fallen asleep? Okay.
We are here, Prabhuji.
Okay, good. Just checking in with you. Two different methods for controlling material senses are recommended in the Vedic scriptural wisdom. One of them is the process of Gyan, or the path of speculation, understanding of the Supreme, Brahma, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. The other is that of direct engagement in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Of these two most popular methods, the path of devotional service is recommended here as the best, because one on the path of devotional service does not have to wait for the attainment of the fruitful results of pious activities or the results of knowledge. The two stages of executing devotional service are: first, the stage of practicing devotional service with our present senses under the regulations of the recognized scriptures, and the second, attaining sincere attachment for serving the particles of the dust of the lotus feet of the Lord. The first stage is called sadhana bhakti, or devotional service for the neophyte, which is rendered under the direction of a pure devotee. And the second stage is called raga bhakti, in which the mature devotee automatically takes to the various services of the Lord out of sincere attachment. The great sage Maitreya now gives the final answer to all the questions of Vidura. Devotional service to the Lord is the ultimate means to mitigate all the miserable conditions of material existence. The path of knowledge or that of mystic gymnastics may be adopted as a means for the purpose, but unless mixed with bhakti or devotional service, they are unable to award the desired result. By practicing sadhana bhakti, one may grab the point of raga bhakti, and by performance of raga bhakti in transcendental service, one can even control the supreme powerful Lord. It's amazing how Maitreya Muni is giving, practically the complete process in these few verses. And in the previous verse, it is said, by serving the personality of Godhead, gradually one. So that word gradually is explained in this verse. Can someone who's been listening attentively tell me how? Anyone? Okay, I'll explain. So the verse here is saying, simply by chanting and hearing of the transcendental name form of the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, one can achieve the cessation of unlimited miserable conditions. And then it uses this term, therefore, what to speak. So generally, when you use this term, what to speak, we'll say, the animals can render devotional service. What to speak of the human beings? When you use what to speak, it means you're talking about something lower. So what to speak of something higher? And Prabhupada explains here that what is being explained in this verse is the main aspect of sadhana bhakti. I take it everyone knows that there's two aspects to bhakti. The first aspect is sadhana bhakti. Anyone can give me the definition of sadhana bhakti? Or the translation of sadhana bhakti? What does sadhana bhakti mean?
Can I try, Prabhuji?
Sure.
Chanting, hearing the glories, and worshipping the deities.
Yes, that's right. So sadhana bhakti, according to Srila Rupa Goswami, means regulative devotional service. And there are two aspects of sadhana bhakti. When one is practicing sadhana bhakti, it is not so much the attraction that drives them, but it is the order of the spiritual master and the dictates of the scriptures. The spiritual master says one should hear and chant the transcendental names. One should get up for Mangalarti. The scriptures say, certain things will do it. So we're practicing regulative devotional service under rules and regulations. It's not spontaneous. And Rag Bhakti is spontaneous. We are attracted. Even if the scriptures didn't say it, even if it was not an instruction by the spiritual master, just the natural attraction to the activity will impel us. And that's called Rag Bhakti. So yet he's saying simply by practicing sadhana bhakti, regulative devotional service, one can immediately seize all material conditions. As you know, in the Nectar of Instruction, Nectar of Devotion, right at the beginning, Srila Rupa Goswami lists 6 characteristics of pure devotional service. And what's the first characteristic he lists? Kleshagni. Kleshagni. What does Kleshagni mean? Klesha means what? Miseries. Agni means relief from. So when one starts practicing pure devotional service, because the first 2 characteristics come at the stage of sadhana bhakti, immediately material miseries are ceased. Just like us, if we think about how our lives would be without devotional service, there are so many trials and tribulations that go on in life that really test us to the ultimate. But because by the mercy of Krishna and the spiritual master, we have received some transcendental knowledge. And when we are confronted with these difficulties, we don't really experience the full extent, maybe some minimal, because of the results of pure devotional service. And then Maitreya Muni says, what about those that are on the path of Rag Bhakti, the residents of Vrindavan? There's no miseries for them. They are completely absorbed day in, day out in thoughts of Krishna. Completely absorbed. And they're experiencing inner joy, inner satisfaction by dint of that attraction for Krishna. So material distress cannot touch them. Cannot touch them. I mean, we can have a whole discussion about the 6 characteristics that Srila Rupa Goswami explains, but this is inherently there. Okay, dear devotees, I have spoken so much. I think I should stop now and ask for any questions, comments, or reflections anyone may have. Any reflections?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
I just had a reflection, not reflection, but just a thought that the sheer, the way you put it, I don't know, I can't recall, the sheer plain and bluntness of the answer that was given to the question, it was just so simplistic and enlightening right at the beginning. So I just wanted to express that. Sometimes we try to say things or things are said and they become kind of misunderstood, but the sheer bluntness makes one understand straight away. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for that, Hitesh. I also felt the same. The answers were just so to the point and
Yes.
so accurate. It's just like, you go to a doctor sometimes, you're struggling, you're suffering, you don't know what's wrong with you. And an expert doctor immediately makes the diagnosis. That's your problem, right?
Yes.
That's the diagnosis, and this is the solution. This is the medication. Maitreya Muni was like that. Absolutely spot on. There's the diagnosis. There's the problem. Misidentification with the body. And there's the solution. That's how you come out of misidentification. Bhagavatam is such a beautiful, beautiful book. Such a beautiful book. You know, if we read and study Bhagavatam, we cannot but become enlightened and see the reality from the illusion. Therefore, the second verse is that Bhagavatam distinguishes reality from illusion. Thank
Hari
you.
Bol.
Hare Krishna. Anyone
Thank
else?
you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else, dear devotees? All right. Thank you very much. Have a good evening, good night. All glories to your service, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Srimad Bhagavatam. Panchakalpa turubhyascha, kripa sindhubhyeva patitanam pavanam Vaishnavibhyo Anattakoti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Hare
Jai.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you,
Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for the nice class. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.